What if I told you the secret to the most vibrant, flavorful tomatoes you've ever grown wasn't in a bottle, but was already waiting right beneath your feet? Welcome to Roots Revision. Here, we reconnect those powerful ancestral practices with modern soil science. In this explainer, we're going to completely transform your approach to tomatoes, helping you build a true partnership with the earth for a legacy of abundance.
So where do we begin? Well, our path to a truly abundant harvest starts long before we ever break ground. It all starts right here, with the seed. Think of it as the genetic blueprint that's going to dictate the entire story of your season. This single choice is the foundation upon which everything else we do is built.
Before we even think about a specific variety, we have to choose a growth habit. Are we cultivating a determinate bush plant? These are fantastic because they give you a single concentrated harvest, perfect if you're planning on canning or making sauce. Or are we training an indeterminate vine, a relentless producer that will give you fruit all season long? This decision literally shapes the architecture and the entire rhythm of our garden.
Okay, with our seed selected, we turn to the nursery. And this is where we leverage a tomato's unique superpower. See all those fine hairs covering its stem? Those are actually adventitious roots, just waiting to happen. So by burying that stem deep when we transplant, we are essentially engineering a massive, resilient root system, the anchor for the plant's entire future.
Now we have to sync our actions with our climate. This is so important. If you're a gardener in a cooler zone, you're in a race against that last frost. But for those of us in the South, we face a totally different threat: intense heat that can actually render pollen sterile, causing all those beautiful blossoms to just drop right off. These opposing pressures demand two completely distinct strategies for planting out.
All right, with our seedlings chosen and their timing perfected, we now turn our attention to the living foundation of the garden, the soil itself. Our role here isn't just to plant something, but to actually foster the complex, subterranean ecosystem that's going to sustain our crop. The core principle of any regenerative system is to honor the soil structure. You see, tilling is a really disruptive act. It shatters the delicate highways of mycelial fungi that plants depend on for transporting nutrients and water. The no-dig method, instead, feeds the entire soil food web from above, kind of mimicking a forest floor and preserving that vital infrastructure.
And right here, you can see that synergy in practice. That top layer of compost is nourishing all the life in the soil. And below, those shallow-rooted companions like spinach, they act as a living mulch, cooling the soil and protecting the deep-diving tomato roots without competing with them. This is exactly how we build a resilient, interconnected system.
So, as our plants begin their journey up towards the sun, our role evolves. We become architects, providing the right structure to guide their energy. The goal here is to prevent chaotic growth, focusing the plant's finite resources on what we really want, producing abundant, high-quality fruit.
For those of us growing those big, indeterminate vines, let's be honest, the common tomato cage just isn't going to cut it for a plant with 10 feet of vertical ambition. The Cordon system, however, is built for it. By dropping a single line from an overhead frame, we give that vine sturdy, season-long support to express its full, magnificent potential.
If you value this mission of healing our soil, please click the subscribe button. It's the best way to support the Roots Revision community and keep this knowledge growing. You'll find a downloadable PDF of this entire presentation in the description below. Now, at this stage, we have to unlearn the industrial mindset. That single-stem pruning you see, that's for commercial greenhouses trying to maximize yield in a massive, controlled space. In our backyards, that technique actually severely limits our harvest. The master method embraces some of that lateral growth, creating a fuller, more productive plant with way more fruit and clusters.
Effective pruning really requires precision. We have to learn the anatomy of the armpit. That's the junction right between the main stem and a leaf branch. The energy-draining sucker emerges from here, usually at a 45-degree angle. But the precious flower truss, that emerges directly from the stem. Knowing this distinction is absolutely key to protecting our future harvest.
Our next act of guidance is a defensive one. So often, soil-borne pathogens reach the plant through water splashing up onto the lower leaves. So, by removing all the foliage below that first flower cluster, we create a clear splash zone. It's a simple act, but it dramatically improves airflow and removes the primary pathway for nasty fungal infections.
With our plants well supported and pruned, we can now focus on keeping them healthy and productive from the inside out. This part is all about managing their internal resources to build true resilience against pests and disease. All right, let's confront one of the most misunderstood tomato problems out there. Gardeners see that dark, sunken spot at the bottom of a fruit and they immediately assume it's a calcium deficiency. They run out and add supplements that do, well, nothing. They're treating a symptom, not the root cause.
The truth is, it's a failure of transport. Most garden soils have plenty of calcium. The problem is that the plant needs a consistent flow of water to move that calcium up to the developing fruit. Inconsistent watering basically shuts down this nutrient highway. So the solution isn't more calcium, it's a real commitment to consistent moisture.
Unlike a forest, a vegetable garden is a pretty intensive system. To sustain heavy feeders like tomatoes, we provide a balanced meal every 2 weeks. This formula gives them a great foundation of NPK, that's nitrogen for green growth, phosphorus for roots and flowers, and potassium for overall health, plus a bunch of micronutrients that feed both the plant and the soil life it relies on.
You know, a truly holistic defense is proactive, not reactive. So what if we could put our plants on high alert, priming their natural defenses before a threat ever even arrives?
Well, we can, with a simple aspirin. It's fascinating, really. When a plant is attacked, it produces a hormone that is chemically similar to salicylic acid, aspirin's active ingredient. So by spraying the leaves with a diluted aspirin solution, we can trigger that same defensive response. The plant's immune system just shifts into high gear, making it much more resistant to stress and disease.
And so we arrive at the culmination of our season-long stewardship, the harvest. But even here, there's a final piece of wisdom we need to make sure we capture that perfect flavor we've worked so diligently to create. We have to bust the myth of vine ripening. A tomato actually ripens from the inside out. Once that fruit shows its first blush of color, we call that the breaking stage. The vine has already sealed it off from receiving any more sugars. Harvesting now prevents splitting, protects the fruit from pests, and it lightens the load on the plant so it can focus on other fruit.
And finally, the absolute #1 rule of flavor preservation. Never, ever refrigerate a homegrown tomato. Temperatures below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 10 Celsius, will permanently destroy the delicate aromatic compounds you've spent months cultivating. Please just store them on the counter to protect that perfect taste of summer.
You see, when we tend our gardens with this kind of awareness, we're doing so much more than just growing food. We are active participants in regeneration. We're rebuilding our soil, we're improving our health, and we're deepening our connection to the earth. Thank you for joining the Soil Revolution.
We'll leave you with this to ponder. The soil holds countless secrets, all of them just waiting to be rediscovered. We encourage you to keep listening, keep learning, and to always, always grow with intention.